Hey, Rebels. In today's episode of the Rebels Edge, coming to you live from the floor of the iconic New York Stock Exchange, the Claude crash continues as software stocks extend last week's slide on concerns that AI is going to be replacing software developers. Danaher dives into AI with the acquisition of biotech diagnostic darling Masimo. And finally, in Pete's Red Zone Sports, are Max Crosby's days at the Raiders numbered? Inquiring minds want to know. We're going to cover all of those hot topics and more on today's Rebels Edge. Let's go.
Bang! From the iconic New York Stock Exchange, as Marc LoPresti so eloquently described, I'm John Najarian. He is Marc LoPresti, folks. That ceiling above us, is it gold up there, Marc?
Well, it's not AI. This is a real backdrop, folks. This is not the AI avatar of John and me at a virtual New York Stock Exchange. We are actually here physically on the floor.
Yep, beautiful spot as always. I'm lucky enough to have the flag right here behind me. Marc's got a lot of the additions that were necessary to haul all of the electricity on and off the floor and cool this place. Because back in the day, folks, they used to have to air condition this place year round because of all the heat from the bodies and so forth on the floor. It's not quite as packed with those bodies, but it's still doing record volumes even now, Marc.
Yeah, so, particularly in their options business. That's where the growth is.
That's right down the hall that way, folks, in the garage. They are exploding in trading volume in those options. Marc is exactly right. Well, Marc, let's dive into a little macro. I'll hit the Empire State Manufacturing. I'll let you hit the UK unemployment. But Empire State Manufacturing survey, basically business conditions, if you will, inched down to 7.1. That was the fourth positive reading in 5 months. And I know Marc's got a little something to say, perhaps, about, as he's already said, Claude and the UK unemployment picture.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's important on that Empire State survey, John. This was a positive print. It was a little lower than expectation, but it does show that manufacturing is returning to the great state of New York, which is obviously terrific and consistent with the goal of President Trump's economic policies. And yeah, look, the UK is facing, I think, a much different and more challenging economic picture. Unemployment rising to 5.2%. It's a scary number. That was above what watchers in the UK were expecting. You know, they've had a tough time getting inflation in control, adjusting monetary policy, having that, that battleship of monetary policy move a little bit more like a speedboat, which is very, very hard to do. But when you get it wrong, you start to see it bubble up in places like the labor picture and the employment picture. That's why the Fed here in this country has the dual mandate that it does, but something certainly to keep an eye on as things go in Europe.
Well, then we've got the VIX, Marc, which was up to almost 23 earlier today. Maybe it even ticked over that, but it came down like this, folks, because that was an 8% jump. Now we're down 4% on the day. The VIX right now hovering at a level of 2078. I'm sorry, not down 4%, down 2%. I misspoke, but still coming down fast, as Pete likes to always highlight, Marc. The VIX goes up pretty quick, but it goes down even quicker.
Yeah, it does. And obviously it's good to see the VIX coming down as the market turned positive. Certainly the Dow and the S&P, the NASDAQ right now struggling to get in the green, largely occasioned by that continued tech sell-off, specifically software stocks under pressure again today in what we're referring to either as the SaaS apocalypse or the Claude crash. I haven't figured out which one's going to look better on a hat. So we're going to use both of them interchangeably right now. But I will say, as I said on my radio show this morning with the great Janet Alvarez over at SiriusXM, we are watching, Market Rebellion analysts watching carefully some of these software names. And I know, John, you mentioned to me at dinner last night, you're starting to think we're getting into oversold conditions. We're watching those 50, 100, and 200-day moving averages that give us an indication that stocks might be getting oversold, but it doesn't seem to me like we've gotten quite to that point just yet.
Right. Well, ServiceNow, NOW, CRM, Salesforce, and a host of those others really hit by exactly what Marc says, the Claude crash. Yeah. So that's the one I favor over the SaaSpocalypse. Plus, I think it would look more like Sasquatch if we put it across a hat. But let's dive into prediction markets, Marc. So there were a lot of rumors that Apple was going to come out with a new product line before the end of 2027. Those rumors, people actually betting on that, were basically over at Polymarket up over 70 some odd percent, Marc. Now that thing has fallen dramatically and is now down to just a 38% chance. So do you think, would you be betting, Marc, that we are going to get some sort of a new line, whether it's an iPhone 20 or whether it's these vision glasses that Apple's making, or is it just going to be the same old, same old?
Well, listen, I think the prediction markets were betting as heavily in favor of a new product launch from Apple because we haven't had that sort of iconic Steve Jobs black turtleneck moment, where some amazing new groundbreaking product has been launched by one of our favorite tech darlings, one of your and Pete's oldest holdings in the PA accounts. And they really do need one. They're losing ground competitively in places like China, and I think they need to come out with something. I don't necessarily see, if I had to pick between the two, John, I don't necessarily see the iPhone update. I think the Vision headset, actually, as you know, you and I are going to be interviewing the CEO of a cutting-edge headset company here on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange later today. And I think you're going to see the evolution of that particular sector in tech emerge more in headsets, VR, AR for work versus gaming and play, and Apple's got to jump in that pond. So we'll see. You're going to keep a close eye on these prediction markets.
All right. Well, let's look at a stock that's down 12% today, Marc, GTC, which is Genuine Parts. And I bet most of you who haven't heard of the company could take a wild guess what they make. Parts for automobiles, chief among those. And basically, full year guidance was well below estimates, Marc. Even though sales were up over 4%, the fact that guidance was weak, it's that backward look. You said, well, our sales were great. Okay, but how are they going to be going forward? Not so good. And that's why they're hitting the stock by 12% today.
Yeah, they're also undertaking a spinoff of one of their divisions that I think a lot of folks are saying is propelled by some of the private equity shareholders that are in that name. Concern there about whether or not that's going to be executed properly. And the other big question when it comes to these auto parts companies, John, is whether or not all of the activity in buying to keep existing cars on the road in the response to high interest rates and the cost of new cars or leasing new cars, whether that party has come to an end in an anticipation of interest rates cooling, maybe making affordability of cars coming a little bit more into the range of something that people can deal with, which of course will drive down demand. And the whole story, as you say, is about the guidance on this name and whether that would potentially drive down demand in the future for parts for existing used cars. I think that's probably part of what's going on here. So this stock getting hit on a couple of different fronts today.
Well, let's talk about Masimo. This one, Marc, perhaps one of the biggest deals of the week right after as we come out of President's Day, because Danaher apparently was able to sequester a bunch of the board members and so forth, and they're going to try to acquire Masimo for $180 per share, all cash, Marc. So this is a pretty serious offer. It's not stock and cash, it's all cash. And the acquisition, apparently, both sides think this is a great deal. Masimo shareholders certainly do, because shares are up 34% at mid-session.
Yeah, and listen, this is one of those companies that doesn't have the slings and arrows of the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials. They are a diagnostics business. They're a non-invasive diagnostics business. So a device that you can wear without having to have it implanted in your skin or under the skin or subcutaneously, as the MDs like to say. And they're also one of the folks that have been using AI in a very, very meaningful way to drive the reliability and the accuracy of those non-invasive diagnostics. So obviously the folks over at Danaher think this thing is worth 180 a share and a heck of a lot more, and existing Masimo shareholders certainly have something to celebrate on that news today.
Absolutely. Well, let's flip that script, Marc, and go to shareholders who are crying big tears, although apparently for Ocular Therapeutics, those tears are hard to come by because they have a treatment for wet age-related macular degeneration.
Yeah.
In other words, anything with the retina on the eye is where these guys specialize, and they are down over 20% today, Marc, because this biopharma posted top-line results for their phase 3 superiority trial that, again, you can't miss when you do those, but they did, and that's why shares are just getting cracked. And by the way, as you see from that chart that Jared put up there, this isn't the first bit of bad news they've had. This one has been coming down pretty hard since December, and today it goes into the single digits hard, Marc. It had already slipped below 10, and we had unusual activity. So for those of you who follow our unusual put activity, it's a much better way to trade the short side than selling stock, folks, because you sell stock, if that stock pops even just a little, like you saw in that chart, you know, not everything goes straight down. They go down and up and down and up, and you might get washed out. By owning a put, you're never going to get washed out on those little up moves, and instead you'd have been able to ride that whole thing all the way down, Marc. It would have been a great ride.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it shows once again the power of the UOA that we put out to the proud members of the Rebel Nation, as I like to refer to our members within Market Rebellion. And, you know, it's interesting to note macular degeneration, which is essentially a form of, you know, progressive blindness. You will ultimately, as it gets worse, both with age and increasing severity of the condition, folks will ultimately experience either partial or complete blindness. And it's a really large TAM, total addressable market, in terms of the number of patients that suffer from some form of macular degeneration. So there's a lot of companies that are looking to develop solutions for this affliction. Unfortunately, this one missed the mark in their latest phase 3 trials.
Yep. But again, folks, if you were a subscriber, you could have profited from that massive drop, the one that we were showing you. So make sure you go on over to Market Rebellion, check out marketrebellion.com/get started. We've got subscriptions that go from 1 trade a week to 1 trade a day to the full fire hose. Everything that we're seeing as far as unusual activity, calls and puts, and you could have perhaps been one of those people who's celebrating today instead of crying those big tears. All right, let's talk about Zim integrated shipping, Marc. You are friends with one of the largest, and I've met him through you, one of the largest shipping families in the world. And Hapag-Lloyd is certainly one of those, but you're good friends with the Pepping family, and sadly, that family, the passing of an icon with that family. So I'm just delighted that you're here to basically cover shipping, because Marc's not only a sailor, folks, but like I say, he's intimately involved in some of the biggest shipping companies on earth.
Yeah, well, I don't know how intimate, but certainly, yeah, the family you're referencing, they're one of the giants in refrigerated shipping, and we are mourning the passing of Garrett Jerry, as we called him, who died just a few days ago, who was absolutely one of the icons and legends in the shipping industry, helped take that company and the family's history from what were rafts going back and forth to Denmark into what the company is today. But this obviously big news out of from Hapag-Lloyd, which is without a doubt one of the biggest in the space, agreeing to acquire for $35 a share Zim integrated shipping. And this is a deal that just sees even further consolidation, I think. And, logistics shipping, John, we're only going to need more of that, particularly as we see GDP increase, interest rates come down, industrial production improve. It goes back to that ISM New York manufacturing survey that you talk about. The president's looking to make this country a net exporter of goods versus a net importer of goods. That means more demand for shippers, shipping, and logistics. So I think a very smart move on the part of Hapag-Lloyd to pick up this company.
Yep, I agree. And Zim is a stock that had been a frequent shipper, maybe not flyer, on unusual option activity, but unfortunately, just as this one hit, I didn't see the unusual for this time, Mark. But it's going to be a great combination, I think, these two companies. Let's talk now a little bit about Pete's Red Zone Sports. Pete is not here today, obviously. Pete is, I think, in Napa, Mark, enjoying some of that sweet nectar of the gods out there where he got married with his lovely bride, Loopy, out there in Napa at Chimney Rock, if memory serves. But let's talk a little bit about his Red Zone Sports and Tyreek Hill, known as the Cheetah, because Tyreek is one of the fastest players in NFL history. And he was traded from Kansas City after one of their Super Bowl wins. Miami got him, but now he is a free agent, which means you don't have to pay anything, Mark. This is not a situation where they'd have to trade to get him back. He is a free agent, as that term implies. You just have to pay him. You don't have to pay the Miami Dolphins. So one of his former teammates, Chris Jones, really wants him back. We think this might be the piece of the puzzle that they were lacking the last couple of years.
What do you think they're going to have to pay? I understand he's a free agent, but what do you think he's worth, and what do you think it's going to take for him to come back over to Kansas City?
It's late in his career for a wide receiver, I think, Mark. I mean, obviously, quarterbacks don't have to go flat out speed all the time like wide receivers have to, and cut and stop, and puts that strain on their ankles and knees to where it does eventually slow them down. So that's why Tom Brady can play into his 40s. But an older wide receiver, I would say maybe a 2-year, $30 million deal or something like that, Mark, maybe even 40. And would Kansas City be wise to do that? Heck, they'd be wise to give him the physical, see if he can still perform at the level that he was. And if he is, then that trade looks pretty smart. They did have a fall off in production after he left, but it wasn't that big. And if he still has some, quote, gas in the tank, I think he'd be a good acquisition to get back. That's my take anyway.
Well, John, what's going on with the Raiders and Max Crosby? There's a lot of rumors swirling about how much longer he'll be with the team and whether or not he even wants to remain.
Right. Well, and Pete and I talked about this last week, Mark, because Max is a hell of a player. He's what's known as an edge rusher, which means, of course, that he's fast and he's big and lanky and a multi-year All-Pro on a very good defense. But for the right deal, would he go? And Pete and I both speculated about Detroit, Mark, because he played in, I can't remember if it was Eastern Michigan or Central Michigan, but he's from the Michigan area. Came out, went to the Raiders, became a superstar, and perhaps the Detroit Lions would love to get him. If that's the case, what are they willing to give up for him? Tom Brady's not a dummy. He knows that you don't just give away an all-pro edge rusher. You got to get something good for him. So is it draft choices to help the Raiders protect what we are anticipating being the number 1 pick in the draft, Fernando Mendoza, with another great offensive lineman? Could be. Is it a trade, or is it a trade for some of their draft picks? I think it's more likely it's a trade for draft picks, Mark. But if that's the case, Max, who even just recently has talked about this openly on a podcast, Let's Go, that podcast, I think he didn't flat out put himself out there, but he knows that people are talking about him and potential trade. So when that talk heats up, you know that people are listening, and anybody around the league would love to have him, even if they've already got Hutchinson on one side as an edge rusher. They'd love to have Max Crosby, I think, on the other side at Detroit.
Totally agree. Well, John, listen, I got to do a little shameless plug here because we do have another great event coming up. 23 and 24 of April, Chicago. If you want to see the action live from a trading floor like the one behind me,
Yep,
you
just
have
like
to
that.
join us in Chicago at the CBOE that is actually co-hosting this event with Market Rebellion. Pete, John, myself, all of your favorite Market Rebellion educators and analysts are going to be there, boots on the ground. 2 days of hardcore and intensive education, training, live trading, and for the folks that pick up the platinum level ticket, you're going to get in the pit during trading hours with
Yep.
Pete and John, the legends themselves. They're going to bring you back to how it all started. Don't miss this. Producer Jared, please pop up a tile so people can scan the QR, call the 88 number, and grab the tickets while you can. There's only 75 of them. And John, we didn't do executive tickets for this event. They're either VIP or platinum. Every single seat in the house is going to be fantastic. But if you want to get on the floor with Pete and John, they might even teach you how to do some hand signals and open outcry hand trading like back in the day. The movie Floored. If you haven't watched that, go pull it up on YouTube and watch the movie Floored. We're going to be doing it live on the SIBO, April 23, 24. Don't miss out.
Mark's absolutely right, folks. Only 75 of you can attend. And those of you who have attended as recently as the 29th and 30th down in Miami, a special 2-day workshop, this one is not to be missed because it's on the iconic CBOE Global Markets trading floor, folks. You'll be able to see live trading as well as get down into the pits if you buy that platinum ticket. So only 75 of you can basically join us, and we hope you decide to do it now. So click on that, talk to your salesperson, because these are going to go fast. Seriously. 23rd and 24th of April. Bang. All right. Great job, Mark. We'll see everybody tomorrow on the Rebel's Edge.